Hello, hello. Welcome to the Be Your Own Hero show. I'm your host. I'm Sekou Write. I am a professional speaker and a professional. Let me see where do I want to go. I think I want to go with professional motivator. Motivator. I want to go with motivator today because I've been getting some good comments from some people that have made me feel like I'm doing the right things. I'm doing the right things, saying the right things. All right, so today, once again, is the Be Your Own Hero show. Hero is an acronym. It means helping everyone reaps optimism. It also stands for high emotion, radiates overflow. That name was given to us by Rev Mel. Shout out to Rev Mel for getting it together. And I just wanted to do a couple quick couple quick disclaimers. I am not a full-time person. I'm not a full-time, what's it called? What's the thing called again? Man, I'm just nervous. I'm just nervous. That's what's going on. I'm just nervous because I'm doing something new today. So for those of you that don't know, happy birthday to me. My birthday was this weekend, and happy birthday to me. And so I didn't get to do everything that I wanted to do in terms of doing the show while I was live. But just a couple quick things I want to mention before we get into this very special episode. So I'll show you something. I zipped down from New York down to Baltimore to celebrate my birthday with Fee King. And let me just show you her. This is us. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. That's me and her getting it together. About to get out there and tear the town up. And so that's me and Fee King. And that was, again, down in Baltimore, and I came back up. And so you're seeing me live in New York, but I was down in Baltimore this weekend. And let's see, there's one more, I believe there's one more photo. Yeah, here we go. So this is dedicated to Reverend Mel because she's been talking about trees. This tree really struck us. This tree was massive. It doesn't look big in a photo, but this picture was huge. It was huge. And so it took up a lot of space. And so that gave us something to smile about. And I think one more. Oh, yes. So this was a great come up. Look who this is. Look who this is. I caught this person right at the Bowery. So we were just walking around, and I was like, yo, that's the lady from that's Sonia Stone, the actress that played on The Wire and many other shows since then. And I just ran into her, and I was like, oh, I got to get a photo of her. And she cracked a joke about the fact that she's wearing a trash bag. You can see she's wearing a trash bag there because she was just on a cruise that was outdoors. And so she had to cover herself up with everything. And I was like, oh, sorry, baby. Sorry, I got the photo with you. And so I took a photo with Sonia Stone. All right, so that's what it is. We planned a great series of events. We did all kinds of things, and we did all kinds of fun things while we spent time in Baltimore. I want to introduce my concept this maybe this week. Maybe I'll be able to keep this up all week, but I don't know. But I know we got to keep it up for today. So for today, I'm having a guest. I'm having a guest. So shout out to Marco. Marco is the husband of Rev Mel, the one I was just talking about. So Rev Mel and Marco are two halves of a great big whole, and they do so much stuff together, so many things together. And it's really great to not only have him as a person who does so much with Rev Mel, but who has also had a stroke like me, and that can talk to this as someone who has really been blessed by it. I'm gonna use a nice term. You've been blessed by it, and what can come from that. So let me hit you with the drum roll, and let's get him up on screen. So let's go. Marco.
Hey, hey, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday again to you, Sekou.
Happy birthday to you, because your
Yes,
birthday is one day in front of mine. So
that's right. That's right.
that's
And
right,
and
right.
uh, we both should still be celebrating, and I'm sure we both still are celebrating.
Yes, we're both still celebrating. Still celebrating. Still
Yes,
celebrating.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but I guess I wanted to talk about I want to talk about this. When when you first had your stroke, I remember coming out to the hospital to see you.
hmm
And I I I did that then, and your energy then was different than your energy, you know, all these many years later when we were talking about it after I had a stroke, and I had something more to talk to you about. So I mean, are there different phases? Are there different, different, feelings you do? Like, how was the difference between being a well, I guess you should define your stroke for people, but just was there a difference between the attitude then and the attitude now?
Um, it's learning more. It's learning more about yourself, learning more about your body, learning more. We all experience strokes in different ways. Um, well, I should say many of us do. My case was I had a stroke. My left side was completely paralyzed. A lot of it came back, but a good portion of it didn't, and it's 12 years later. Um, your case is, you had a stroke, you were paralyzed on one side. A lot of it came back, a lot more of it came back for you. You're able to run a marathon. I wasn't able to run a marathon, you know. Um, but um, I have, there are different things with memory that you may have that I don't have. There are different things with speech that you may have that I don't have. So it affects us differently, and I think that was the one of the biggest things that I took with me from immediately, during the rehab process, because one of the doctors explained that your the stroke is a brain injury, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So you got a million pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and you throw it on the ground, and they scatter all over the place.
Wow.
And then it's trying to piece them all back together to get everything back functioning right, and some pieces you may not be able to find,
Mm,
and get the puzzle completely back together, or you can find a lot of it, and the puzzle is two-thirds of the way done or three-quarters of the way done. It's always trying to find the pieces to now fit, to complete the puzzle.
wow. That's deep. That part about the jigsaw puzzle, I hadn't heard that before. That's interesting. And also, I wanted to go back to me running a marathon because I didn't know that I was going to be able to run a marathon. Let's just be honest. I did not know. I did not know. But what I found out is that I had already registered and registered for the
Mhm,
marathon when I was able-bodied, and then I
mhm,
forgot about it. I had amnesia, and I remember it coming into my awareness that I was still running for that marathon, and there were people in my circle that were immediately like, "Oh no, no, you don't need to worry about that. Don't
mhm,
worry about that. Let's talk about you doing a marathon many years from now." And
mhm.
then I was like, "Well, why? Like, like why not?" And I did not know. I did not know. I did not know, which is why I made it part of the Guinness World Records, because I wanted there to be something pulling me, like to
Mhm.
go after it, to do it. And it was hard. it was
I
it
can
was
imagine it's hard for people who don't have a stroke. So I can imagine how hard it was for you.
Yeah, yeah. And I still remember it, like you just brought it up. I still remember the different pieces of the puzzle there, and I'll use your puzzle to add things to it. But yeah, so that was a lot. What you said about the jigsaw puzzle. Now, did you have any like it seems to me like you haven't had any degradation in terms of your thinking, in terms of your articulating words, which was a big problem for me. And as you can tell, folks that are watching the show, it's still a challenge for me. Like, yo, how you saw it in the interview in the beginning today. I was like, trying to get my things together. So did you have something like that?
I think I believe I was fortunate in that aspect that once I could pretty much I could always kind of talk. I didn't lose the ability to speak. I didn't lose much in terms of memory. I was able to continue that, and maybe that was the thing that was pulling me. As opposed to the physical of running a marathon, because one of the, it's funny because I had said at one point that I know because I've worked on a New York City Marathon. I was working on a marathon last year when you ran, um, and I said to myself that I know I'm fully back if I'm able to run a marathon. That was a goal for me.
Wow.
Eventually, I gave up on that goal.
Wow.
um, but the one thing that was important, because I run an internet radio station, and that was, and I do concerts and events, so there's a lot of speaking involved. So it was important to me that was the thing, I guess, maybe that was pulling me to be
Mm,
able to still um, be able to do what I do what I love, and share music, and provide an outlet for artists and that sort of thing, and be able to have the platform that I have. So that has been, a big thing for me. And then the physical kind of catches up, so I still can't move like I want to, but I can move enough so I can still host events. I may look funny to certain people doing it or whatever, but that became less and less of a concern for me because I learned to deal with being differently able. So it's
yeah.
nothing it's nothing that I feel I can't do. I just do it differently than other people.
Yeah. Let me emphasize that. Do it differently than other people. Do it differently than other people. Do it differently than other people. Because for me, I don't know about for you, but for me, everything has changed.
Hmm.
Everything has changed. I mean, everything. And it's so hard to explain that to people. Like everything has changed.
Hmm.
Like like how you do what you used to do so easily has changed, and you got to figure out different ways to communicate that same thing. And so how's that been for you?
Um, for me, it's probably like you mentioned. You have you struggled with the articulation and that sort of thing, which has always been a big thing for you because you're a writer, you're a speaker, so that's a major challenge. For
Yes.
me, it's the physical. I used to love to dance. That's how I met Rev
Mm,
Mel. We were at a
yeah.
party dancing. Um, so that I don't do that as much anymore. Or I had to learn how to do that differently. Things like washing dishes or picking up stuff because I'm running an event and I need to carry something, or I can't wait for my nature is I'm not gonna wait for somebody to do it, or I just can't tell, hey, pick that up for me and carry it over there. I'm gonna try to do it myself.
Mm,
Those types of things for me um is what I had to navigate and figure out, okay, how am I gonna do, even being able to drive, and there was 'cause it was a long time that I always wanted to start driving again, but it was a good 8 years or so before I felt comfortable, like being able to drive primarily one-handed and that sort of thing, and be comfortable. Because what happens if you get in a situation and you need that other hand? You need,
mm,
that to be able to grab the wheel with two hands or whatever. But once I got, it took a while to get that comfort level back. And that's like you said, it's hard to explain to people
mm,
who are not going through it because it is another mindset
mm.
that you have to have. It's like if someone says, hey, hey, come over here real quick. It's like I'm not running anywhere. It's like but you can't say that without sounding rude. It's just
Yeah.
like I'll get there. I'm coming as fast as I can. Type
Yeah.
of thing. But it is a different type of way of being, and hard to communicate, and
Yeah.
hard to make people feel that they don't have to cater to you per se.
Mm,
You can, you'll do it. You're just gonna be a little different.
mm, yeah. For those of you watching, I got a comment on the sidebar about Marco driving. Yo, I came up. So Riverdale came and picked me up in Nashville, Tennessee, and we got out the elevator, out of the airport. We get in the car with you, and I was sitting up front next to you, driving this car, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was like frozen because you were doing everything so fast. You were doing everything so fast, and given my amnesia, like I've forgotten what it was like to be back in New York, to all the pedestrians and all the cars and all the things that are used to you, but that you're used to now. But for me, coming out of amnesia, I was like, what is going on? How are you steering past all these people? How are you getting? And then you were talking to me, like we're having a real conversation about strokes. So I was like, oh, right. So I want to give you props for managing that, because I couldn't drive yet either. But for you to have really owned it and be able to wheel it, I commend you, bro. I commend you.
Thank you. But
Yeah.
it's like you said, you were in a space then that you couldn't see it, but now you could probably see it, and you'll be there. You have more mobility, so you'll be there. Shortly. But for you, I think it's different because it may be, and maybe it's a question for you, that it's more the mental than the physical for you.
Mm,
The mental for you seem to be the mind over over matter, because you're going to run the marathon, and all of that. But it, because I think a lot of what we go through when we have a traumatic experience like this, having a stroke is certainly mental. I mean, there's a lot of therapy that goes with it. Like when I was in therapy, somebody told me group therapy can be very important for you because you'll see other people, and you'll see the
mm,
states of other people. Now, where I was in rehab, it wasn't just stroke victims. It was, people who fell and hit their head. It was
mm,
stroke victims. It was people who had major heart surgery. It was people who had knee, replacement. So it was different types of therapy, and the group therapy, you know, almost to a degree like this, you kind of, whether you have conversations or you just watch and observe how other people manage what they're dealing with, and you realize that there is a major mental component to this too. So, how have you been able to manage that, dealing with it? Because you're also a thinker, you
mm.
know.
Yeah,
How do you manage that process for yourself?
yeah, yeah. It's been challenging. It's been challenging because my thinking isn't as good as it used to be.
Mhm.
I have to say it honestly. I have to be clear about it, because people see me and they see how I express myself and they see how I'm moving and they think, oh, he's fine. No, he's
Mm.
fine. And it's like, no, like yesterday, yesterday I went to see a doctor yesterday, and I got there only to find out that I didn't do all the preliminary stuff that I needed to do for that doctor. Now that's something that should have known better. I should have read the stuff the for that doctor, the pre stuff, like all the the things. And I've done this before with this kind of doctor before, with my mom, with other people who have had or similar things that they need to check on. And I was like, how did I forget that? How did I forget that? And and I felt bad. I felt awful for forgetting the lead up, just the lead up to the doctor, because I made sure I just said I was in Baltimore for the weekend, so I had to make sure I get my stuff together, got back from Baltimore to go see this doctor. All of that for the doctor to be like 5 minutes. Hey man, you need to do all this preliminary stuff beforehand, you know? And so that hurt me a little bit. And
Mm.
also, I'm gonna add one more. Like later that same day, I was trying to get my book published. My Hack Your Pain. For those of you that don't know, Hack Your Pain Now. Hack Your Pain Now is a book that I just released. But there was some behind the scenes stuff I had to do, and I couldn't figure it out. And this is something I've
Mm.
used many times before. Like I could see that I've used it at least twice before. Book uh, publishing it through Amazon, right? So it's my third book, and I just couldn't figure out like where is the button, right? And I had to go get the help of a neighbor to look at it and figure it out, and she figured it out like that, and I was like, oh man.
Mm.
So the fact that my mind is not moving as quickly as it used to, as quickly as it
Mhm.
used to, is painful for me. And trying to do this show and trying to do the other things that I do that I used to do so well, it has its effect because I'm already trying to let go the intro to the show, but I know how the intro to the show went. I got a little tongue tied and whatnot, so I got to get past all of that and
Mhm.
be able to see myself as someone who's trying, who's trying his best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the key. That you're there's always a level of recovery. I mean, how I've looked at it is, though I still don't move the way I used to. You know, I'm not giving up. Even if I'm not actively doing therapy, I'm still working. I'm still walking. I'm still moving. I'm still, there's nothing that I just can't do. I just have to do it differently, and then
Mm,
I'll continue to work on what I can do. And I think you are in the same. You're certainly in the same situation, just differently.
yeah.
You're that. You may not be able to think like you could, but you're actively using that. So there'll be more things that come to you. I mean, because you are far, even from when you were here for the marathon, you are far ahead of that pace now. you know so
Oh, tip,
so it's understanding where you're coming from, and the strides that you continue to make, and like you said, being able to let go of the things that you know you wish you could do better. It's like, yeah, I wish I could have done that better, but I did it. I made it happen. So next time maybe it'll be that much better, just by a little bit, and then you just keep working it, keep working it.
yeah, I say. I wanted to point out this comment from Linda. Linda says the puzzle metaphor is a great way to illustrate the effects of a stroke and the recovery following. Yeah, I thought that too, and I just want you to just put a little pin on it. Just whatever you want to add to that now, Marco, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I got it. That's not my metaphor. That I got that from rehab where I was at, and I'll even give them a plug. Burke Rehab Center. One of the very best, I believe. And for those folks, and I think this is important for people to understand, because it was important for me, and for those. I mean, strokes are more and more common for younger people. I had my stroke at 42. So it's important to understand that it is possible, and doesn't necessarily have to be just high blood pressure that causes it, or just this or just that. It's any number of factors.
Mhm.
From stress to not eating right to not sleeping properly to any number of factors. So certainly one, we have to take care of ourselves, um, and do all the things that we take for granted. We work hard. We have to continue working to get to that next level, so we don't sleep or all that. But
Mhm.
my point about that is, you know, if for folks who have a stroke, or you're dealing with from helping with someone who has had a stroke and they're going to rehab, you know, you can't expect don't expect them to come out of rehab and be fine, and they're back to where they were. The rehab process is to get you kind of functional in the world again, because
Mm.
you're only going to stay in rehab for but so long. You're only
Right.
going to be in the hospital for but so long. You're
Right.
only going to be in rehab but for so long.
Right.
For me, that so long was 3 weeks. That
Mm.
3 week window, they did everything they could, and they did a great job to get me where I could move around with it, with assistance with a cane or a walker or whatever, you know, but I'd be able to be somewhat functional,
Mm.
again out in the world. Then the work begins. Then it's
Mm.
really kind of, acclimating yourself to moving around. And, in my case, because again, I had to use a cane. I no longer use a cane,
Right.
because I got to the point where it was, literally and figuratively a crutch. So,
Mm.
I
Oh,
got
let's
to
pause for that. Let's pause for that. Literally,
the
figuratively, a crutch. Woo, that's deep. That's deep.
yeah, because I became too dependent on it, and
Mm.
I realized I could, because there were times I left it or forgot it, and I walked around the house without it.
Mm.
So, and there's a certain level of independence that was
Mm.
needed, um, to accept that next step of where I was at. So I stopped using the cane, but the process is kind of never ending.
Yeah.
Um, that or can be never ending. There are a lot of people that recover fully and then completely back to where they are, or by the naked eye, you think they're back to where they are because they may
Right.
still have weakness on that particular side, or
Right.
they may have, their thought process is not quite the same, or their speech is
Right.
not quite the same. It may be close, or they work really hard to make it work, or like they may have a facial, they may have still a slight droop on their face that
Mhm.
that they
Yeah.
didn't have before.
Right.
So there are lots of little things that you still have to go through, and it's important that people around you understand, um you know that's a process, and
Yeah.
understand that you have a lot that you're going through in trying to navigate this process.
Yeah. 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 I want to to piggyback on that because you talked about um, well, let me phrase it this way. What, just now when I was telling the story about I found a neighbor to help me with the book, right? She asked me questions about the process, right? And I came to realize something that's very important, and that is that we speak about what happened, like what happened with us that made us have the stroke. And I don't know everything, folks, because my mind was kind of on and off and on and off. Even though I was fully awake, my mind was kind of on and off. But I remember that Fee King, shout out to Fee King, she picked up on something. And she said that the doctor said that I wasn't drinking my water, that I was not drinking my water. Now, at the time, I was running a mile, at least a mile a day for 409 days. So it's a lot of water, a lot of, you know, um, I don't know what to call it, but just a lot of expenditure of water. And I wasn't drinking my water. And so for those of you out there who are thinking, oh, I should drink my water, drink your water. Drink your water. It's for real because, like if I had but known that it was drinking water, of course I would have drunk my water. Of course I would drink my water. But feeling like, oh, I don't need the water, I don't need it, that had its effect. So I wonder, Marco, if there was something that you want to point out that that you needed to do.
I think to really pay attention to the stress and letting stress go, because I think a
Mm,
lot of it for me
mm,
was stress related. You know,
mm,
my blood pressure wasn't particularly high; it was borderline, so I could have done better with that. I probably could have drank more water, but I think a lot of it for me was stress. I think, and my doctors had theories about why the blockages came up, but you know. When I had the stroke and I was on the way to the hospital, what the EMTs and the doctors were saying was like they were asking me if I smoked. They were asking me, other questions that would indicate that would have that they saw based on how thick my blood was.
Mm,
So, so which again caused which contributed to the blockage, of
mm,
my brain and all of that. So, at some other point, maybe we'll talk more about what happened and the feeling of it, because they say stroke is a silent, it can be silent and deadly, and it's
mm.
true, because for me, I had no idea it was coming. There were no real symptoms. It just happened. But
Right,
and you feel, but I felt it happening. I'm
right,
really clear about everything that was happening in the process,
mm,
but there was no real lead up, you know.
right, right. Okay, okay. Well, clearly we're gonna have to do a follow up. Clearly, we'll do it again.
Yeah,
We,
there's a lot to talk about here.
yeah, we cleared the time really quickly. So I just want to say what's up to Shay, saying I see you, Sekou. I much appreciate that, and also saying she sees the compassion in both of us. Hey, Marco.
Hey
And so
Shay.
yeah, yeah. So we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna do a replay. We're gonna do a continuation of this. And until then, let's just say uh, now is better than perfect. Do whatever you're doing now is better than perfect. Let's go. Let's go get it. Anything else you want to say, Marco? Any close words?
No, no, you said it. That's perfect. Now is better than perfect. I love
That's
it.
it. That's it. All right, folks. We'll see you later.